one of Longchenpa's 7 treasuries. Of course, Jeff just mentioned another one, basic, the treasury of the basic space of phenomenon, or the Dharmadhatu, and that plugs into this text so well, actually. But this is the way of abiding. So, I mean, everything you need to know about what enlightened abiding looks like, what the mind free of congestion and turbulence and stress and contraction looks like. Um, it's very easy for us to get caught up in thoughts and have various cycles of thoughts captivate us or capture us. Now remember, if you're fighting with somebody or you have some issue with the world, to let that infect you like a virus is letting it win. To have something constantly circulating in your mind, that is unnatural. That is complicating things. That is grasping. That is holding something which is trying to burn away from you. So I really hope you can notice first, when you step into this practice, you're noticing the quality of thoughts. When they come, when they go, when they stay, how heavy are they? How impactful are they? As in, how much emotional trailing is there? We can have a thought right now about um, apples and oranges, and our emotions, our body may not follow into that very much unless you're very hungry right now. Then it certainly will, it can. But if I bring up mom and dad, then the emotions in the body will have a whole different following into that thought. You understand the contrast there? And so when we start to back up our thoughts, uh, we start to have ineffability in the backdrop of all thoughts. Thoughts become a lot lighter. Yes, these thoughts of mom and dad, but ultimately I'm going to leave it ineffable. And in that, you get this great freedom. You're not contracting into your ideation. So when you rest in awareness, it's like resting in the ocean rather than the waves. I think all of you are really starting to resonate with that. Um, and so, in that way, everything that's happening is just like in a dream, all phenomenon. Your emotional states, your thoughts are all within awareness, permeated by awareness. Mm-hmm. And there is a great freedom in that. It's a reorientation. I'll definitely get into your feline insights at some point. We should probably start the text. Well, maybe YouTube wants to hear too. Yes, she had an insight about cats. We're like cats. A thought appears, we see it moving, and like a cat, we chase it because it's moving. Very nice. Very good insight into the great perfection. So I'll get into the text here. Of course, I think we're finally getting into ineffability, the first of the 4 great samayas. Um, little mentioned, little known in the Dzogchen world for some reason, translated in strange ways sometimes. But these 4 great samayas, they correlate with the 4 visions of Togyal. And of course, this text is inclusive of Trekcho and Togyal. So, um, yeah, ineffability, openness, pure presence, and oneness are the 4 great samayas. And it says here, page 77 of this, I believe it's 2005 edition, translated by Richard Barron, Choki Nima. Is it 2005? That is too small for me to see. Very, very tiny. 2008. Okay, very good. Chokinima, Richard Barron translation. It says each of these four samayas is further analyzed under the following four topics: revealing its key point to be suchness itself, discerning the implications of its being ultimate and naturally occurring timeless awareness, embracing its larger scope as unborn and beyond the realm of the imagination, and coming to the decisive experience that is beyond causality or deliberate effort. The 16 factors thus enumerated constitute the overview of this treatise. Furthermore, these topics correspond respectively to the following: the way of abiding as it is and always has been, immersion in genuine being as the experience of abiding within that context, conduct that involves no fixation, and dharmakaya that is spontaneously present. When one knows this, the ultimate meaning that has not been perceived before is pointed out as being the supreme transcendence of phenomenon and the falling away of ordinary consciousness. All right, so I will give you a heads up with this text. In contrast to other translations, they're going to call ordinary consciousness the equivalent to your conditioned mind, your karmic mind. So, sem in Tibetan, the conditioned mind. Sometimes ordinary mind means your enlightened mind because it's your natural state, free of conditioning. I happen to fancy the word ordinary, but in this particular text, Richard Barron does not. So just a heads up about that. So it says the heat jewel states, given the unique quality of timelessness beyond the three times, its constant flow is without interruption or boundary, and so has no beginning, middle, or end. Yes, and that's commonly referred to in the Dharma as the fourth time that permeates the three times. And I hope many of you are beginning to break that frame by frame illusion that makes it seem like we're constrained to time, but there's only ever pure presence. There only ever has been. So with linear time resolved and timelessness, there's only the label supreme evenness. For what comes about cannot be ascertained. Having no association with discursive thought as such, the complete and ultimate meaning of natural great perfection penetrates to the core of the ordinary mind. I'm going to probably be replacing that with conditioned mind. It sounds a little strange to me to be calling conditioned mind ordinary mind, given the very last text. And some people in the Kagyu tradition, by the way, also call it ordinary mind. So I'm just going to say, having no association with discursive thought as such, the complete and ultimate meaning of the natural great perfection penetrates to the core of the conditioned mind. The thought that this is non-manifest or non-existent as an object is not cut through deliberately. Rather, it is cut through in its own ground. The root of non-recognition of awareness, without having to be examined, is timelessly determined never to entail confusion. Yes, paradoxically, as your confusion liberates, there's this sense that confusion was never even there. And so just like a bug bite on your skin, it was always skin. It was just the skin was inflamed. And once the inflammation goes away, it goes back to skin. So there never really was a time where it wasn't skin. And just like that, there was never a time where this wasn't pure consciousness. Irregardless of how we're vibrating it. So just like sand castles, you can build sand cars and sand people and sand castles, but it's always going to be sand. In a dream, you can dream of anything: forests, mountains, planets, spaceships, cars, but they will always be mind. And there will never be a time where your mind is not there. So for me, it's logical to befriend the mind, to start to come home to the mind. And maybe even in cultures and families and societies, we can come home to our mind. Who knows what that'll take for that to happen, but many of you are in that trajectory. So, and it's happening in big numbers in contrast to seemingly dark times, which is quite interesting, but predicted. It was predicted in the scriptures that Dzogchen would flourish during these dark times. So, yeah, the root of non-recognition. So that's the Four Noble Truths right there, right? There's non-recognition, or there's confusion. The reason for confusion is non-recognition. And then there's freedom by recognizing awareness. And that's the Fourth Noble Truth. The Eightfold Path starts with right view, which is awareness. And everything comes naturally, spontaneously, effortlessly from effortless abiding in the view. And that doesn't mean you turn into an inactive zombie. Your creativity is complemented by this realization. If you like your job, if you love your family, if you love nature, all this stuff is complemented. And there's absolutely nothing you have to delete from your beingness. I know that comes up as a concern. So, but none of this is perceptible to anyone in any way. Ha. Well, another great line there that gives you proof that Rigpa is unharnessed. I feel like that is one of most potent degenerations that we could endorse, is that somehow there's someone harnessing Rigpa. It's very tempting, I know. My fishy mind almost wanted to bite that hook too. But please don't get swayed by that temptation. There's no one possessing this awareness. And the more you surrender into that, you are empowered. It's not like you're giving anything up. So very potent there. It's not perceptible to anyone in any way. That's why it's like water being poured into water. When you recognize the nature of mind, it's cognizance recognizing cognizance. The very thing that's afflicted is recognizing unafflicted pure cognizance. So the view itself is afflicted. The recognition, the realization itself was a farce. And in that regard, allow it to be like space meeting space. Allow it to be like water being poured into water. The ancient analogies that we have are there for a reason, okay? Don't get confused by this I possess awareness stuff. That's ridiculous. So, moreover, with all the coarse elements naturally cleared away from the very beginning, the ineffability of the realms of ordinary beings is naturally ensured. Right? So, definitely a difference in Dzogchen is that everybody, even the person who's begging for money, has no place to live, you see them as a Buddha and you see them completely equal to you. There is no superiority here. That includes world leaders, very rich and powerful world leaders. You see them as Buddha, people across the spectrum of humanity. Yes, they may still be involved in their own confusion, but simultaneously, it may also be paradoxically, you will see the Buddhahood right there. And I feel like that's been one of the most beautiful parts, for example, even in this group, of being able to converse with people, pointing out and things like that, is that I can at least glimpse that. I'm not claiming to have full realization or anything like that, but I can see your Buddha. I could see your enlightenment, your light. It's there in all of you. And so, of course, may you see it too, and continue to see it. So it says here, in the timeless ineffability of one's body lies the knowledge that has never existed and never will. So the body has never existed and never will. And those of you who are starting to tune into your intuition and allowing your intuition, your subtle mind, to speak, because our coarse mind is so busy and distracted that it's basically like we're talking over our subtle mind, our intuitive lucid mind, that Longchen loves to mention, by the way. And the more we can tune into the subtle nexus of ineffability, it is communicative, it's a network. And it may seem boring from the samsaric vantage point to see a yogi just lost in a kind of ineffable daze of suchness, but that yogi is most likely having more conversations than you could ever imagine, right? And this beautiful beingness. Yeah, the body is the elements, everybody. We have to let it be part of the elements. The body is mostly space, empty space. Let it be that, right? So all of this is timeless and does not manifest within any construct of time, be it unitary, twofold, sixfold, or threefold. Manifestation, partial manifestation, and non-manifestation take place within their own contexts. Yet, what is timelessly present is transcending such context, is not perceived by anyone. I hope everybody's understanding that paradox there, how you could actually have a realization and at the same time there's no one realizing it. Probably don't need to continue to emphasize that, but it's quite important. That's the famous conditioned self, that manas vijnan. That's the ego that all the propaganda machines love to pump up. And look at TikTok. TikTok is basically I'm sorry to say, if anybody loves the app, I'm sure you're great and everything, and you can take care of yourself, but it's essentially a manas vijnan app. It sits there and pumps up that seventh egoic consciousness, right? And wow, do world governments love to hire expensive doctors to get into your ego like that and really pump it up and make it seem like your identity and how you identify is so important. And they've realized this with Edward Bernays 100 years ago. I mean, it's Edward Bernays' 100th anniversary of psychological warfare on its own people. One of the dirtiest moves you could do, in my opinion. But please, everybody, we have this group. This is a powerful group. A lot of people are part of it. We are breaking those chains. All right. There's no way to. They have the power. They have the might. They have the physical power, but we have the mental power. You understand? We can be free mentally, and then that is it. That's what they want the most. Whether they're people selling you a product, people trying to get you to follow religion, people trying to co-opt your mind for various ideologies, whatever's going on, you have protection with the awareness practice. All right. Yeah, check out it's dirty business, manipulating people's minds. Very dirty business. And so we are going to take care to continue to I feel like I was an activist for a while. This is the last stronghold. This is the last chance people have to be free, to make a change in the world. Because, like I said, we're outnumbered, we're outmanned, kind of physically here, by these various establishments, these strong-armed corporations and billionaires and all this stuff, to just have their way with the people. But we can repossess our minds. All right. It's a topic close to my heart. I think that's why the group is also thriving, because this is just part of the whole thing. Yeah, Thomas, isn't that gross, man? To manipulate people like that. To me, it's like manipulating a dog or something, or a child, anybody with a mind that's malleable and susceptible. That's why, growing up, I'm not gonna lie, I played sports. I grew up wrestling, fighting, boxing, and stuff like that. Um, and we'd never fight a drunk guy. We're never, like, even they're so easy to subdue, and you would never fight somebody who's obviously could not get in a fair fight. And so, yeah, and to me, it's the same thing. It's just very unethical. And then also how the education system is manipulated. So it's like everybody, and then everybody's like trained to act like they're rich when they're really not, or maybe they're temporarily rich, and then flaunt it in people's face that are dirt poor. The irony of that, like TikTok is a great example of people just flaunting wealth right in the face of people who are starving. It's a very interesting contrast there, and completely delusional. Right? It's this lifestyle of the rich and famous that's been imposed on the average class people. And average class people are trying to pretend to live a life that they don't have. And who would want such an inbred and insulated weird life anyway? Where you're worshiping giant owls and you're chilling at Bohemian Grove doing all kinds of weird stuff. Who wants to do that? Stay normal, stay grounded, play with the dogs, love the sky, breathe in nature. Anyway, I can honestly go for a whole hour on this topic. I deliberately don't mention names and a lot of research, because people's minds it's all about your mind right now. Look at what the algorithms are all programmed to do. Right now, it's advanced psyops. And Dzogchen is the antithesis of that. Proudly so. They're going to have to poison me or something to get rid of me for talking about this. All right. So anyway, I think we can stop here. I know it's kind of in the middle there. I'm sorry, Yeshi, but that's just how it worked out. So it's not perceived by anybody. We'll go in timelessly untraversable. We'll start there next time around, okay? Nothing like ending it with a good tangent. But it's our parents too. It's our family. It's friends that we have to be careful how deep we go into people's minds. So this can be respected. It's like when you see somebody's phone, you don't look at it. When they're sitting there on their phone and you can see their screen, you don't look over their shoulder. But this is part of honesty and ethics. And maybe some of us, sometimes we need to check in with ourselves to make sure we're keeping it real like that. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Yeshi. Thank you, everybody, for exploring this text. That was unique. It kind of went into modern psychology quite a bit, and sometimes that's the way it trails.